we're not quite done yet. I'm going to share with you a bonus tip how to smooth it out even more. Hey, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Shanae, and today we're going to frost this beautiful tall cake. And in the process, I'm going to share with you 10 tips on how to achieve professional looking cake with smooth, straight sides and sharp corners. The reason I love a perfectly frosted cake is because I'm personally not much of a cake decorator, and I like it to leave it minimalistic and chic. Because once you have a perfectly smooth frosted cake with nice straight sides and sharp corners, you are already 90% on your way of professional looking cake. And from there you can just drizzle a little bit ganache or top it with macaroni too, and you will have a beautiful chic cake. You don't have to worry about elaborate designs or anything like that, and your cake will look perfect. So let's start with tip number 1. First, you want to assemble your cake on a cake board, preferably the same diameter of your cake. I used 6-inch cake board for my 6-inch cake. Tip number 2 is while you're assembling your cake, make sure to place your top layer of the cake the cut side up so that you will get nice sharp edge already to begin with. Tip number 3 is when you're assembling, especially tall cake like this is 6 layers, you want to make sure to place your layers perfectly on top of each other so that you don't have any crookedness. If it helps, I suggest using acetate film or another ring to keep you on track, but I usually tend to not use those things. I just make sure come to the lower my body and check how straight the cake is. So if you, after each layer, if you keep doing it, you will be fine. And tip number 4 is crumb coat your cake. I already have a crumb coated cake here, and chill it at least an hour in the fridge. Or you can freeze it and or refrigerate it overnight. The harder your crumb coat is, it's easier to coat the cake. So tip number 5 is tools that you need. I highly recommend getting a turntable because it's a game changer in frosting the cakes. I have this cheap cake turner for about 8 years. For me, as an amateur cake baker, works perfectly. The next tool you would need is a spatula, tall spatula, especially if you're frosting a tall cake. This one, I specifically bought it for cake decorating, but I also have this baking spatula also, but as you can see, it's not as tall, so for tall cakes, it won't work. So make sure to have at least as the same as height as your cake. The next tool is offset spatula, especially when you put finishing touches on top. You do need offset spatula. I highly recommend 2 sizes because sometimes you want to, for small jobs, you need small one, and sometimes when you are doing bigger work, you can use the big one. Now, tip number 6, choose the right frosting. You want to go with nice and thick frosting like my Swiss meringue buttercream. I have my vanilla Swiss meringue buttercream here, or another option is chocolate ganache frostings as well. They're very sturdy and nice. However, I don't recommend whipped cream based frostings because they're too runny and too soft and they don't harden as well. I don't like cream cheese frosting as much for frosting cake like this because it's really hard to achieve smooth sides because they don't harden as well. But if you're not into like smooth frosting, by all means go for it because cream cheese frosting is one of my favorite. American buttercream also works beautifully. You can apply the frosting with a large spatula over on the side of your cake. I, however, like to pipe my frosting all around so that it's really easy for me to smooth out the side. So now I will just pipe the frosting all around. It's okay if your line is breaking, you can just fill it back in. This is a good starting point now. So now what we'll do is hold your spatula upright, flat on your turntable, and then gently turn the turntable and run your spatula over the edges at an angle, and then we'll start turning. Have a bowl for your frosting so that you can scrape off excess frosting, because you don't want to use that frosting as much. I see I left a gap around here, so I'm gonna just fill that in. And then we'll keep doing this until the frosting is completely evenly distributed. So tip number 7 is to hold your spatula at an angle and smooth out. Our goal is not to scrape as much frosting off. Our job here is to just smooth out the frosting all over evenly. Now I'm going to use offset spatula to fill in these gaps. And this is tip number 8. Fill in the gaps with extra buttercream instead of trying to smooth out with the spatula. We're getting there. It's looking pretty good. So for the top, I like to use my large offset spatula. It's okay if the top buttercream squeezes out on the sides, because we're going to smooth it out now. You do want to have your excess buttercream on top, because this is how we'll smooth it out now. Looks pretty good now. Tip number 9 was to pay attention to the corners and make them nice and sharp corners, and that way your cake will be top notch. Tip number 10 is keep putting it in the fridge for 10 to 15 minutes just so the buttercream firms up nicely. Now the bonus tip is run your spatula under hot water for a few minutes and then smooth out your cake again for that final touch. It will be perfectly smooth. That's it. My cake is nicely frosted. Now I'm going to put finishing touches to this cake and it will be completed. In my next video, I'm going to share with you really easy, super elegant, and very surprising decor on this cake. If you would like to see that, please subscribe to my channel, hit that ring button so that you will get notified on my next video. And in that video, I'm going to show you inside of this cake. I really hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions or if you learned something new, please drop them in the comments below. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.